Alright guys, so today, for the first time in my channel's history, I'm going to verbally commit to creating a new series for my channel, which is gonna basically revolve around early 90s era horror. It's gonna be probably like a list style, like top 5, top 10, whatever. But before I did that, I wanted to kind of do this, which is just a conversation about why I'm doing it. The main reason is just that I really love early 90s horror, and I feel like for the most part, even in the horror community, it's pretty much maligned and there's not a lot of fans of it out there. It has a really bad reputation. There's a lot of stigma around it for being bad, stupid, whatever, but it's kind of the stuff that I grew up on. It's a lot of times the stuff I ended up seeing on TV late at night or renting at the video store. And what I'm talking about specifically is pre-Scream, early 90s horror. And what I'll probably end up doing once I get the video started is I'm willing to go all the way back to 88. And in some cases, even into the 2000s. That might bug some people. I don't know. I might get a lot of well actuallys if I don't explain myself when I do that. But the reason is the style I'm talking about of early 90s horror kind of did start popping up around 88. And there were some into the 2000s. But once Scream came out, everything kind of changed. So there's not as many, but they do exist here and there. And basically, it's not as deep of a well as 80s stuff, but it does have very much its own style and tone and feel. It's a lot darker in some cases than the 80s. It started getting into some pretty heavy stuff, but a lot of them on the other side of that were very light and silly and campy. And even the dark ones, as serious as they were, did have a very campy, humorous tone to them. Almost unintentional, just because of the production value and the acting. One mark of the early 90s horror movie is almost daytime TV production value feel to it. A lot of them are direct-to-video, very odd. The acting is stiff a lot of times. It feels like you're watching a soap opera or a sitcom, just the way they're shot and, you know, just the production value. Soap operas and TV shows, especially in the 90s, had that feel, and a lot of these movies have that. And you'll hear a lot of people a lot of times talk about how there was a horror movie drought in the early 90s, and I think that's not exactly true. I think there was a drought in theatrical horror. I mean, you had like occasional stuff like Candyman and the Child's Play films, but as far as in the video store went, there were tons of movies, and there are a couple of really unique categories and sub-genres that popped up, and I'll be talking about those once I get into the videos. But it's just always very interesting. The direct-to-video like boom around the late 80s, early 90s kind of was a game changer, and it was a really cool, interesting part of horror history and movie history in general. I mean, this kind of stuff bled over into action movies and comedies too, and there's a lot of those movies I love, but of course, obviously I'm a horror fan, so horror is usually my focus. But just like everything else, the whole era has its own directors, its own producers, its own stars. There are like 90s B-movie direct-to-video scream queens and stuff that are really prominent in that time, and you'll see them pop up. A lot of really great character actors kind of got in around this whole time, and I mean, there's just a lot of good stuff, and it's stuff that I have a deep love for. There are also effects artists that are a little bit underrated that worked in the 80s, but really did a lot of their best work, their craziest work in the 90s. Screaming Mad George is one of them. John Buechler, who is without a doubt my favorite special effects artist, and for as recognized as he is, I still think he's the most underrated special effects artist. I think that when you're talking about special effects, Tom Savini and K&B always come up, and Buechler, I mean, he might come up, but in my opinion, he should be right up there with them. And he has a lot of stuff in the late 80s and early 90s that is just amazing and mind-blowing. It's just more over the top than a lot of those other guys that people talk about a lot, and I think that's probably why. And that's kind of what all of this boils down to me. When people say that they think 90s horror sucked, it's usually because it was campy, it was over the top, unrealistic, absurd, low production value, bad acting. But, I mean, honestly, you can probably tell by looking at the kind of stuff I review on my channel, like, that's the reason I love that stuff. And I know that there are other people out there like that, but I also think that there's probably a lot of people who have that preconceived notion about it. They've never really given it a shot. They could be the kind of person who does like it, but they hear everybody just kind of say, you know, this movie sucks, that movie sucks. The 90s sucked. There were no horror movies in the 90s. And so maybe just by doing these lists, somebody will give some of these movies a shot and figure out that they love them too. It mainly boils down to a bigger picture of something that I very strongly believe in, which is to just watch everything for yourself. Make your own, form your own opinions. There is a lot of hard set rules in the horror community that kind of bug me, because I think a lot of people just kind of form their opinion around that to avoid any kind of resistance or getting called out like their taste in movies suck. It's not true. Movies are art, and art is subjective always. Just because you love something that isn't some deep political allegory or some super polished art house or blockbuster movie, just because you like something for being fun, that doesn't exactly mean that you're unintelligent or that the movie is unintelligent. It's just fun. And at the end of the day, for me especially, that's why I watch movies, to escape. So I don't, and you know, sometimes you want to watch a movie that'll really mess with your head, that's deep. But sometimes you just want to watch crazy effects, see crazy monsters, watch some failed attempts at a movie, awkward acting, stuff like that can be very entertaining. And if you like that kind of stuff, if you like Lifetime movies, if you like CGI creature movies like Asylum makes, it's all your own prerogative if they entertain you. I think it's important to check all that kind of stuff out and form your own opinion about it. You'll catch some crap sometimes, but it's always better to be yourself and figure things out for yourself and be an individual. But anyway, I'm kind of getting way off topic. So 90s horror, yeah. I'm gonna start a series. I'm gonna try not to flood my channel with it. I'll probably break it up with other reviews and stuff like that. I am gonna try to, right now, just verbally commit myself to doing it, because I'm actually pretty excited about it. I have a lot of cool lists that are broken up into categories. You know, there are really weird sequels, and like there's a whole killer doll subgenre, and the pint-sized slashers, people call them sometimes. Just crazy stuff like that. But yeah, that's the plan going forward. I just wanted to make like a little announcement and kind of talk about 90s horror before I got into the lists. Some of this stuff I might go over here and there as I'm doing them. I feel like in each video on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, I guess that's it. Let me know in the comments if you're looking forward to these videos. I mean, I hope somebody is, because I'm pretty excited about it. And thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time.